Alright, welcome back. In the last one we finished saving, got it thing set up so it might be able to play and all that stuff. So I'm just checking the water, make sure that it saved us, what we added, which it did. So it saves it under level settings for whatever reason, but you can see the 0.23 75 animation speed is there. So now we load up and we start doing our work in the level editor. And this is just precursor to doing the whole AI and navmesh steps. It's not terribly hard. It's just a lot of stuff to remember. Hopefully my headset doesn't die again. It keeps turning off on me. Good thing is the editor loads faster after the first load. I don't know why that is, but it does. No. At some point I need to do a navmesh edit tutorial too when you run into problems when you navmesh, but hopefully, more than likely with a flat map like this there won't be any errors. So we probably won't get into that in this series. Okay, so let's get her loaded. Come on, wake up, editor. It always pauses for a while when it finally loads up. Thank you. There we go. Alright, let's get this thing going. Oh, I got no time for that. Alright. When we get it loaded, try to do this kind of in the, I'm not used to explaining it as it goes, so it kind of screws me up, but I'm going to try to do this in the order of events that I normally do shit. So first thing I do is do control points, spawn points, because they're obvious and absolutely need to, so I just rendered the detail and I'll find a corner of the map of some sort. Oh, getting all mixed up here. There we go. Here's one corner. This corner will work. So, create your spawn points. Right click. Create control points. I mean, rather. Best bet. Use your localization file to assign these flags actual names in game. So, try to get in the habit of something like CP. Whoops. Sorry. Something like CP underscore name underscore whatever you want to call it. You know, base 1, base underscore 1, whatever. Because, oops. No, so I'm just going to copy that name for now. So CP name base 1, because then you can use the CP name as a descriptor in your localization file. That way in the game it'll display as the name that's presented, but in the editor it'll never conflict with an object that's named the same name. We found that problem. You have to be very careful with how you name your flags with lots of different objects that are just called bridge and this and that. So watch your naming conventions. Alright, so here's a new flag. There we go. It's down there. And I want a couple of spawns. So spawn point 1, right click, create spawn point 2. Ideally you want at least 2 or 3 of them because you don't want it getting clogged up at spawn time if you're testing with AI. It can cause some minor issues. So then we're going to go over here to the opposite corner just so that there's a maximum flight room in there. Okay, so I'm going to put a flag button here. I'm going to paste that name, but I'm going to call this base 2 just for simplicity. Again, 1, 2, and 3. Alright, so now we have 2 flags. It's technically ready to play in Conquest. 2 flags, spawn points. Now, we want a jet, because that's what this John would like. So, object spawner. I'm going to place a jet for each side. I have a list. You can modify this list in the editor. If you have a question on that, I can explain it to you. It's called the object spawner defcon, and it's got code written in there, so you can just right click and spawn what you want, based on what you desire the pairs to be for each team. So I'm gonna put something basic. Most of the stuff is AIX that is in there at this time. It's been modified but not gone through yet. So I'm gonna put a I'll just put a basic fighter AIX in there, I guess. That'll work. There's one. Alright, let's zoom in on that so we can get it pointing in the right direction. Get him shooting off that way. Maybe I'll put 2 per side, I don't know. One over here somewhere. Whatever, this will work. Oh, we got VTOL. Now we got 2 jets for that side, and then we go back to the other side, which you could have done this before while I was doing the other, but I'm just doing it in stages for you. So, alright, there we are. So we'll put another jet over here. If you have this selected, it won't right click right. So you go here. Now I'm going to put another jet of some sort in there that's somewhat normal. Screw it. A7 will work. Alright. Well, that's weird. A7 doesn't show up. I'll select one in the list here. You can also manually select in the list. If you have a spawner DEFCON, it'll at least get you the PCO point, and then you can actually just click the drop down and select something that you have. I'll just make it an F-35B and a Air J-10, whatever. That'll do. Turn him in the right direction. And then one more over here. And that'll do. Nice little hog. Okay, so you now have an appropriate setup for a test map. Now, next step, and very important not to forget, is your combat area. To do the combat area, you stay in the level editor plugin, and we go over to this far button here, combat area. What you do is, same thing, right click, add control point. We'll see a little green dot here and go all the way around, right around the map in the area that you wish to play in. Now, being that this is aerial, I'm going all the way out. The more complicated the map is, the more high poly count the nav mesh will be. And if you break the 90 to 100,000 poly limit, you will probably experience many problems with trying to get that map not to crash. Just a warning on that. But a flat map like this is going to optimize rather well, so it's no big deal. There we go. And you go all the way right around. And notice I'm going in an anti-clockwise direction. If you were to stare at the map from the top down, I'm going all the way around. And then you want to try to click on the end of this. This will pop up generally. If it doesn't and you screw up, I'll show you where the code is. You get rid of it in the gameplayobjects.com and try again in the editor. Alright, so you want to close this. Yes, I do. Then, once that's completed, you go down to this combat area in your tweak bar. Okay. Where is it? There, get this out of the way. It should have been a... There's supposed to be a used by pathfinding command for that, and I think I missed it. Well, I'm going to save it anyway, close it, and I'll show you the combat area stuff. That's just good to know in case you do mess up or something. So, we've got our combat area here. There should have been used by pathfinding in this code. You could add it by code, but it should have been there and available, but I think when you first start putting it down, it's available. So I'm going to try it again, just so you can get that. So you just delete the combat area, that's just fine. Leave the end if, but everything else pertaining to it you can get rid of and do it and try again if you screw it up somehow. Well, now you know how to fix it if you fuck it up. Bear with me, I do this crap a lot, so I'm pretty good at it, but as you know, the editor, nothing's ever smooth on anything, so what should have happened is when I went to that combat area and I went to close it, it should have shown a list of different things that you can select in that combat area, and one of which is used by pathfinding. If you don't, it will not nav mesh right. It won't nav mesh at all. So we gotta get that right. Come on. I don't mind making videos where I'm making mistakes because I could show you how to fix them that way too. Because guaranteed, nothing ever goes as smooth as what you saw in a stupid tutorial, right? A lot of people cut out some of the stuff when they screw up and then they patch and edit the tutorial, but sometimes it's good to actually do those things and screw those things up so that you can show somebody how to get back to square one if they happen to do it, you know? Alright, so we're going to go straight to the level editor combat area once this thing loads. Come on. Alright, IBTA. So, let's see what I did wrong. I'm pretty sure I know what it is now. So, let me find my spawns wherever they went to. I gotta increase the view distance. I can't see jack. Hang on. If you ever want to increase or decrease your view distance based on how the map's acting, if it's lagging or any of that sort of thing, you can go into here, and I believe it's editor engine settings. Yep. Then set this to 2000 if you want, or if that's too much on some maps, you won't be able to see jack. It'll lag like a bastard. So, anyway. So we're going to start over again. So we're going to do our combat area again. Click combat area. Oh. I don't understand why it's doing that. What am I missing here? There should have been more options than that for the combat area. Well, we'll try again anyway. All the way right around combat area. There we go. Now it popped up. I don't know why it didn't before. I did everything exactly the same. Anyway, good old freaking editor. Used by pathfinding. Always remember to check that. Okay. These vehicles you can assign to certain different types of commands too. Like, for instance, in the drop down, you can say this is a helicopter combat. So you can assign the combat area to groups or certain ones. I find it kind of useless. I just make the combat area large, or once I've generated my mesh, I'll open the combat area up. You know, whatever you want to do. There's ways around some of this stuff. So, anywho, that's it. Save that. Get it done. Now, the next step is now we have a valid combat area. We've got our control points. We've got spawn points, and whatever vehicles we wish to put on there. An important note, ground vehicles use clusters. With that in mind, it means that their guidance in traveling around the map is based on the nav mesh clusters. There's ground, there's water, and there's deep water. If you plan to put ever any tanks, cars, landing craft, or the different types of vehicles that reside in your AI, you must put one of each on there before you nav mesh, or otherwise it will not generate the clusters for those vehicles. Since this is only going to be aircraft and ground, as far as infantry, I'm not going to worry about it. But if you did, and you were planning on putting APCs, tanks, and boats or something like that, you want to make sure that you've got every vehicle type you plan on having in there before you generate the mesh. So that's just a tip to remember. Alright, so we've saved it. We've got that going on. Now the next step is set it up for single player. So what we're going to do is go to single player editor. We're going to find our flags. Ooh, turn around there. Turn that damn blasted fog off. I don't know why that's like that. That's weird. Anyway. Why is that like that? Home. Hang on. Let's turn this shit off in the editor. I'll put a preset in there for the editor because I think this is screwing with the editor, to be honest. Anyway, this shouldn't look like that. set it to texture mode, you can see better. Render AI. Make sure that that's rendered, which it is, I believe it is. What you're going to want to do is come over here and just place on all. Alright, click this button, and then you got this. Now, I made a mistake because I forgot to open the radiuses for these flags. No big deal, we can do that. But you'll see that you got a tiny ass little strategic area, and that's really not appropriate. So I'm going to go back to the level editor and fix that. So go to level editor, grab a flag. Come on. For sakes. There we go. I'm going to just set them to 10 just to make it more normal as it should be. And then I'm going to grab this guy here. So your CPs are up here. And set his radius to 10. And one other thing that I had forgotten is make sure you assign one of these team 2, one of these team 1. So we're going to make base 2 team 2. Here we go. That should do it. Save that. And then we're going to go back into single player editor. And somehow you got to grab them thing and get rid of them. They can be a real nightmare to grab those, but we're going to try. There we go. Got it. Delete it. Since we didn't set our radiuses, I need to remove those. So, why it takes forever getting across this map sometimes. Alright. So we'll delete this one too, just to make sure. The best way to grab them things and highlight the strategic areas, because that's what those are, is a strategic area, is highlight them in blue to work on them, have them show up in the tweak. But when they're small like that, they're almost impossible to click on. Alright, good. We got rid of them. I didn't have to close it and do it manually. Now we can place selected on all, and they'll be an appropriate size like they should be. And that's just basically like a target point for the bots. So it's quite critical for single player. Then what we'll do is we'll assign our infantry and vehicle order positions. Every flag has to have one, and it has to be in a valid place. And it cannot be in the default point. So what we'll do is we'll put one right there. I generally put a vehicle just outside the radius and far enough away from the flag so that they're not banging into it when they go to that assigned location. Infantry can go anywhere you want as long as it's not directly on the flag. So there's one flag done. Now we gotta mosey on back over to this one. Get it highlighted. Okay. And then we're gonna set our vehicle somewhere about there. And our infantry is gonna go somewhere about there. And we're good. Now, this is a simple map, real easy neighboring. The next step is neighbor these flags. The best way to do it is a two-way neighbor. One ways are usually boring and useless, and they don't really work well with gameplay on big maps. But what you want to do is neighbor every flag to each other. It only requires one neighbor on this one because there's two flags. So we right click on the blue with the other one highlighted, and it says add two-way neighbor too. So you're going to use that. That's generally what you'll always use is two-way neighbor. Now we have neighbors. Now if there was, say, 7 or 8 flags, you would take one and you would neighbor it to one flag, neighbor it to the other, neighbor it to the other, so on and so forth, all the way through until you get them all. Then you'd move on to the next flag and neighbor it to every other one other than the last one that you did, because this one was already neighbored to it, and so on and so forth. And you go right around and make sure every flag has been neighbored in some way to each other. This one was really easy. So, file save. And we save here. We also save in the level editor. This is just a bug of the editor. At times it doesn't save correctly if you don't do it in this order. So just to be sure, I'm gonna just click save. Add it did. So if it doesn't, for some reason, just initiate a save by grabbing a spawn point or something, some such a matter. God damn it. That's why I'm in there. Just grab a spawn point, wiggle him a little bit, and then save it. And that should carry over all your AI strategic area changes into the game modes folder. Okay, so that's done. As far as I can tell, this is ready to navmesh. So what we'll do is close this out, and I will stop the video, and we will continue on to the navmesh section.